Donald Trump is yet again back in the spotlight, threatening to bomb Iran if it does not agree to a new nuclear deal with the United States. Known for his blunt rhetoric and unconventional foreign policy, Trump's comments have heightened tensions with Tehran. Having previously withdrawn from the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, he is now addressing the issue with renewed seriousness. In an NBC interview, Trump warned that a failure to reach an agreement would result in bombing the likes of which they have never seen before, raising fears of military conflict in the volatile Middle East. As back-channel diplomacy unfolds in Oman and Iran insists on indirect talks, the world waits anxiously. In this video, we will explore Trump's renewed threats regarding Iran's nuclear program and the context behind this escalating situation. Trump's first term and the collapse of the 2015 deal. To fully understand the current confrontation, it's essential to revisit the history between Donald Trump and the Iran nuclear agreement. The 2015 deal, officially known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, was struck between Iran and a group of world powers: the United States, United Kingdom, France, Germany, Russia, and China. In exchange for relief from crippling international sanctions, Iran agreed to significantly limit its nuclear program and submit to rigorous international inspections. This agreement was hailed by many in the global community as a step toward de-escalation in the Middle East. However, from the very beginning, Trump viewed it as deeply flawed. He repeatedly argued that the deal failed to address Iran's ballistic missile program and its support for proxy militias like Hezbollah and Hamas, which he considered state-sponsored terrorism. Moreover, he claimed the agreement was too lenient, giving Iran a path to nuclear capability once key provisions expired. In May 2018, during his first term, Trump officially withdrew the United States from the JCPOA. The move was justified as necessary to reimpose maximum pressure on Iran, and it immediately led to the reinstatement of U.S. sanctions. Trump's administration also pushed for secondary sanctions targeting companies and countries doing business with Iran. The goal was clear: isolate Tehran economically and politically until it agreed to a broader and stricter deal. Iran, in response, began systematically violating key elements of the JCPOA, particularly by increasing its uranium enrichment activities beyond the agreed limits. The International Atomic Energy Agency later confirmed that Iran had amassed enriched uranium far above civilian energy requirements, sparking global fears that Tehran could be edging closer to weapons-grade capabilities. This deteriorating cycle of provocation and retaliation set the stage for where we are today. When Trump returned to the presidency in January 2025, he brought with him an old grudge and a renewed determination to resolve what he views as unfinished business with Iran. Renewed maximum pressure, sanctions, diplomacy, and the threat of force. Upon his return to office, Trump wasted no time reinstating his maximum pressure doctrine. Within weeks, he signed a memorandum instructing the U.S. Treasury to expand sanctions against Iran, with a particular focus on foreign companies that violated existing restrictions. These so-called secondary tariffs threatened to penalize not just Iran, but any country or entity doing business with it, particularly in oil, the backbone of Iran's economy. While the economic angle of Trump's strategy was aggressive, it was paired with equally bold diplomatic efforts. In March 2025, he sent a direct letter to Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, proposing a new nuclear deal. This overture was reportedly brokered through Oman, a neutral Gulf state that has historically served as an intermediary between the U.S. and Iran. Iran, however, was quick to dismiss the idea of direct negotiations. Both President Masoud Pezeshkian and the Foreign Ministry made it clear that while indirect talks could be entertained, any face-to-face dialogue with the U.S. was off the table so long as threats and military pressure persisted. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi was given full authority to engage in back-channel diplomacy through Omani officials. but he insisted that bullying and coercion would not be tolerated. Despite Iran's rejection of direct engagement, Trump publicly stated on NBC that U.S. and Iranian officials were talking without specifying the nature or structure of those conversations. In that same interview, he issued a stark ultimatum. If they don't make a deal, there will be bombing. It will be bombing the likes of which they have never seen before. The administration doubled down on this rhetoric. White House officials, including Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, confirmed that the U.S. red line was Iran's ability to produce a nuclear weapon. Dismantling the program in its entirety was not just a goal, it was the opening demand. While Witkoff suggested there could be room for compromise, Trump's own words made it clear that failure to meet U.S. terms could provoke military action. Iran's nuclear capabilities and the alleged weapons threat. Much of the tension surrounding Iran stems from international concern over its nuclear capabilities. The JCPOA had previously kept Iran's uranium enrichment activities well below weapons-grade levels, limiting it to 3.67% purity. But following the U.S. withdrawal from the deal in 2018, Iran gradually began enriching uranium to higher concentrations, reaching 60% by early 2025. To put that in perspective, enrichment levels above 90% are typically required for a nuclear weapon. While Iran has not yet reached that threshold, experts from the International Atomic Energy Agency estimate that its current stockpile of enriched uranium could be sufficient to produce multiple nuclear bombs if further refined. Iran, for its part, maintains that its nuclear program is purely for peaceful purposes. It claims the enrichment is necessary to support civilian energy development and medical research, not military ambitions. Still, its refusal to grant full access to international inspectors and its decision to exceed enrichment limits have raised red flags throughout the West. Israel, in particular, views Iran's nuclear potential as an existential threat. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has repeatedly stated that only the complete dismantling of Iran's nuclear infrastructure would be acceptable. He referenced the 2003 dismantling of Libya's nuclear program as the only viable model for Tehran to follow. Trump's administration appears to share this uncompromising stance. It insists that anything short of full denuclearization will not satisfy U.S. security interests. The concern is not just about Iran's capabilities, but the broader geopolitical risk that a nuclear-armed Iran could spark a regional arms race, particularly with Saudi Arabia, and trigger even greater instability in the Middle East. Adding to the urgency is the fact that Iran's scientists now possess far more technical knowledge than they did a decade ago. Even if Iran were to dismantle its current infrastructure, the intellectual foundation for building a bomb remains intact. Diplomatic maneuvering, Oman talks, and conflicting narratives. One of the most striking elements of this renewed nuclear showdown is the confusion surrounding the nature of U.S.-Iranian engagement. On one hand, Trump has characterized the upcoming discussions in Oman as direct negotiations. On the other, Iran continues to insist that these talks will be strictly indirect, facilitated by Omani intermediaries. This discrepancy highlights the mistrust and misalignment between the two countries. While the United States seeks swift, decisive negotiations, Iran is approaching the talks cautiously. Iranian officials like Ali Shamkhani, an advisor to Supreme Leader Khamenei, have said that important and practical proposals have been prepared in pursuit of a real and fair agreement. However, they remain skeptical of American intentions. Statements from the Iranian Foreign Ministry emphasize that Tehran is giving diplomacy a genuine chance, but only if Washington approaches the talks sincerely and without resorting to threats. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takht-e-Ravanchi stressed, "We reject any bullying and coercion," and warned that intimidation tactics would only derail potential progress. Behind the scenes, both countries are playing to their domestic audiences. Trump is eager to demonstrate strength ahead of future political contests, while Iran's leadership must avoid appearing weak in the eyes of hardliners and the Revolutionary Guard. This dynamic makes the path to compromise extremely narrow. Still, both sides have something to gain. For Iran, easing sanctions could provide critical relief to an economy battered by inflation, a plunging currency, and regional instability. For the U.S., a renewed agreement could contain Iran's nuclear ambitions without the risks associated with military intervention. Yet time is not on anyone's side. Trump has made it clear that if no deal is reached within a couple of weeks, secondary tariffs will be implemented. These would likely target not only Iran's oil industry, but also companies in China, India, and Europe that continue to engage with Tehran. The risks of escalation and military action. Trump's warning that Iran could face unprecedented bombing is not an empty threat, at least not from a logistical standpoint. The U.S. has already ramped up its military posture in the region, deploying long-range B-2 bombers and reinforcing Israel's air defense systems. The strategic message is unambiguous. Washington is prepared for escalation. Analysts warn, however, that military action would be extremely risky. Iran's nuclear facilities are spread across multiple sites, many of which are heavily fortified or buried deep underground. Successfully dismantling the program through airstrikes alone would require precise intelligence, sustained bombing campaigns, and potentially boots on the ground. Moreover, any U.S. or Israeli strike could trigger a broader regional war. Iran has the capacity to retaliate through its network of proxy militias in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. Hezbollah in particular possesses tens of thousands of rockets aimed at Israel, and the Houthis have already demonstrated their ability to disrupt Red Sea shipping lanes in support of Hamas. Trump has long promised to avoid new forever wars, but a military clash with Iran could spiral into exactly that. Even short of full-scale war, targeted strikes could unleash months of proxy battles, economic shocks, and humanitarian crises. Nonetheless, Trump appears undeterred. He has set a hard deadline for negotiations and made clear that failure to reach a deal will bring consequences. Whether this posture yields results or leads to catastrophe remains to be seen, but the threat is real, the timeline is short, and the world is watching closely. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you believe Trump's hardline strategy will pressure Iran into making a deal, or is it more likely to lead to military conflict in the region? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And as always, thanks for watching.